Hello and welcome to Community Forum. I'm Heather Hansen O'Neill and I am very excited about this show today. I'd like to ask you, how are you feeling? Are you feeling good? Are you feeling healthy? Are you feeling energized? We're going to talk a little bit tonight about how to be a little healthier, about raw gardening, about what you can eat and how exciting it can be and how beautiful it can be. My shows typically focus on inspiration, connection, and contribution. And I think we're going to cover a little bit of all of that today. I'm very excited about my guest because I have known him forever. Well, technically just a few years, because I believe that I met him when I was 7, so not that long ago. So he's a wonderful guy, and he's been doing some amazing things. I'd like to share with you just a little bit about what he's doing. His name is Michael Ghiggeri, and he owns Ghiggeri Environmental, which is a landscape design and build company. He has a degree in ornamental horticulture and environmental design. He's been moving his company towards education, planning, and installing organic vegetable gardens to help promote healthy, vibrant, environmentally friendly lifestyles. Loving the outdoors and nature, Michael enjoys hiking, kayaking, fishing, and his passion, the guitar, which, don't tell him, but I might make him share with us a little bit. He's recorded multiple CDs, written for other artists, and has recorded for television. Michael, with his wife Jordina and 5 dogs, lives in Frenchtown, New Jersey, and often travels to Connecticut as a consultant. He's in the process of building his site, rawgardening.com, to help weed through the misinformation of health and help people grow their own food. Welcome, Michael.
Thanks, Heather. Great to be here.
I'm so glad that you could come. I was learning a little bit from Michael about what he's working on and what he's doing to help educate people, and I wanted you to share it with our viewers tonight. So can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. I went to Delaware Valley College, which is in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, through ornamental horticulture, as you mentioned, environmental design. And I started into the landscaping business, which, simple, everyday kind of landscaping, and started really developing into the food aspect of it. And it really encouraged me to start eating better and eating healthier also. And so it just kind of started from there.
Yeah, it just grew.
Yeah. No pun intended.
Sorry, I know. We're just going to keep these puns going, aren't we? I'm sure we are. So you're very healthy in what you eat. And what are some of the things that you think about when you're looking at what you're consuming?
Well, mainly is make sure that's a whole food, healthy food, fruits and vegetables. Most things I try to grow on my own, try to produce as much as I can, and I'm very careful on where I buy my food that I have to buy, where it comes from. Very conscious about it, and I think everybody should be.
Yeah. So what do you think? What's the reason why people should be looking into that?
Well, if you read the news even lightly, you basically understand, there's genetically modified foods out there. There's processed foods out there. I mean, we've taken something as simple as corn and we adulterated it so much it's not even corn by the time it comes out. So our food doesn't seem to be food anymore. So I really try to get into the whole foods. And mostly the fruits and vegetables, and kind of even staying away from the meats and the processed meats and things also.
Well, I know that I tend to eat anything and everything. But more recently, over the last 6 months, I started doing a lot more with salads and vegetables and organic foods. And I feel, I've always been crazy energized, as you know, but I feel even more energized, and I just feel lighter. Do you think that that's
absolutely? You know,
related?
when you eat these whole foods, the life forces in there, the enzymes are in there. Your body appreciates it. It's what our bodies want.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obvious. It's what nature provided for us. Everything's out there. So once you start processing the food, that life force is gone. So it does. It makes us sluggish. Makes us tired. Obviously, it makes us sick. I mean, again, you read the news and you can see. I mean, heart disease, cancers, diabetes. I mean, these things are raising at such an alarming rate, and it's sad. It really is, and it bothers me when I walk down the street and I see this kind of stuff. I see people sick, and when family members and friends and the older we get, we start seeing it a lot more. You know, when you're in your 20s and 30s, you don't really
take that into consideration
really,
as much.
you really don't. And you know, when we're younger, especially adolescents and kind of teenagers, and even in your 20s, our bodies produce a lot more enzymes. So as we get older, the enzymes start to decrease. Our hydrogen chloride in our stomach start to decrease. We can't digest food as well. So it just, it's kind of like throwing more fuel on the fire, which makes our bodies worse. And really start noticing that most diseases start occurring when we're in our 40s and 50s. And I really think this shouldn't be happening. And I think we can avoid it and prevent it.
Right, and that's wonderful. Now, you come from a background of environmental design and helping people with their landscaping. So when we were talking before, you were talking about how to incorporate some of this, bringing it together.
Yeah,
right?
called edible landscapes.
I love that. Talk more about that.
Well, envision, you call me up and say, hey, listen, I want a landscape. I've bought a brand new house. I want a couple trees, shrubs, and perennials. So if you take that and instead of going to Home Depot or something like that and buying these typical plants that you see everywhere, it's kind of replacing them with plants that are edible. And there are actually a lot of plants out there that are edible that you probably use every day that people know, like for instance a daylily. The flowers of daylilies are edible, and before they actually open the flowers, when they're kind of in their bud stage, they're very good raw. Actually, just taking them almost like an asparagus kind of flavor to it. But you can stir fry it if you want it also, and the roots are even edible, the tubers. So in the wintertime, it's something that you can kind of dig up and get something almost like a carbohydrate, like a starch, if you think of it, kind of like a potato. But then you can kind of incorporate, like for instance, instead of having a dogwood tree on the corner, maybe you want to put an apple tree or a pear tree. Instead of a Kwanzan cherry, maybe a sweet cherry, something you can utilize the food from. If you have acidic soils, maybe instead of rhododendrons, put blueberries in. Instead of ground covers like vinca, liriope, strawberries. So everything that you can do with a landscape, you can really replace it with an edible plant. We spend millions of dollars a year on annuals. You have your petunias and your begonias and stuff. So maybe instead of putting a drift of petunias in front of your house, putting a drift of lettuce, a red lettuce maybe because you have the red color or a red kale, something that still has that vibrant color and has flows and drifts through the landscapes, but you can go outside and pick it when you're ready for your salad in the evening time.
I love that. I'm a big fan of multitasking. So what you're doing is
It's
you're putting it together.
Right?
Well, one of the things on your, you have a great Facebook group now or a page where I've liked it, so I get all this great information. So I was looking on it, it's called Raw Gardening. Yes. And so I went on and there was something about kale. And I'm just now learning about how ridiculously powerful kale is.
It is the most nutrient-dense plant on the planet. Gorillas live on it.
Okay.
Basically gorillas live on it.
But it doesn't even, like, people are, it's like, oh, it tastes terrible, but it doesn't. I mean, I guess now on your page, you were talking about the different types. Now, was it because of the type of kale that I was eating, perhaps?
No, I like to share, there's so many different cultivars or hybrids out there that, you have different flavors, different textures, and textures are really important when it comes to food because it completely change it. But then the nutrients of these kales are all different because you have a purple leaf kale, which is going to have more antioxidants in there, more phytonutrients, which is the purple color. You have a Tuscan kale, which is a dark leafy green, so you're going to have more chlorophyll in there. You have the curly kale, which is a great plant for like your kale chips. I mean, they're huge right now. I think Brad's is a big one that's the local around here.
Yeah.
They're great because they're curled, they can kind of hold some of that extra flavoring and stuff in there.
Okay.
And yeah, kale, you can do so much with it. You really can. Now, I understand if you just go to the garden, you eat a piece of kale, it can be a little...
Yeah, but you can do stuff with it. You can saute it.
You can saute it, and if you
throw
want
it in a smoothie, maybe.
I throw it almost every day. I put it in my smoothies.
That's great. And the purple ones would be great in the garden, right?
Oh, absolutely, and even part of the edible landscapes, like I said, because you have a little color into there.
Right.
And kale's great too. It grows all year.
Oh, it does?
Oh, yeah, it's actually a perennial. So
Okay.
you can plant it in the spring, summer, or even the fall time. And as long as it gets big enough in the wintertime, you can still harvest the leaves. It's not going to grow because it's too cold, and you probably maybe need some hoops or what have you. But if not, if you don't cover it or anything, it'll come right back in the springtime.
Wow, that's awesome.
And it's self-seeding, so it can kind of seed all over the place, which maybe is a weed in that sense. But the flowers are also edible on kale.
Okay.
And they can go nice, garnish the salad, give a little color.
Very nice. Now, because I am focused on how cold it's been around here lately, and the snow that doubled my travels last night, even though the snow was only, 2 inches.
Sometimes it's worse than 2 feet.
It was worse because nobody was out there doing anything about it. So in this climate, in this weather, in this area that we're in, what do you recommend? Because you said you can cover it. Well, what do you do with your gardens?
Right. Well, this time of year, you really have to start planting a little bit earlier, like October. I mean, arugula, it's a cold weather plant. Spinach, it's a cold weather plant. Kale, mustards. And again, with a little protection, with either row covers or plastic, you can really keep harvesting these plants through the wintertime if you grow enough of it. And then once daylight gets above 10 hours, which is pretty much now, it's around February 10th, give or take a couple of days, the plants actually start growing again, as long as the soil temperature is 35 degrees. Obviously, probably not happening now.
Last week, not a lot.
But as soon as the weather breaks a little bit and we get a little bit more sun and the ground starts warming up a little bit, all these plants will start growing again. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, you're not going to have huge salads every day in January and February like you're going to have the rest of the year.
Right.
But you can still, produce it, and it's still better than grocery store.
Exactly. And speaking of that, talk about the economical aspect of it.
Sure. Well, economical aspect of basically growing your own food, you can really, obviously we know that the prices of foods just keep going up and up and up. And when you look at the price of organic food, even the conventional foods, organic is almost twice as much, which honestly I think they're kind of ripping us off a little bit. But as far as growing these foods, with a little bit of investment, and obviously if you have the space, 1,000 square foot garden can produce $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 worth of food a year. And 1,000 square feet is not very much.
Really?
And,
How much?
Oh yeah, and again, depending on what you grow, but it's more almost, can you eat that much, really, and how much time and effort you want to put into it. But when you look at a price of, lettuce is $2.50 at Whole Foods for organic lettuce, which maybe takes up this much space. So even if you grow 1,000 of them in 1,000 square feet, that's $2,500. Not that you would grow just lettuce, as an example.
Might get old after a while. I'm just saying. I like a little variety.
Variety, right? So, but you rotate your crops, and you get, once the warmer weather comes, you grow your tomatoes and your zucchinis and your everything else, and so you get a nice crop rotation, and you can really grow a lot of money, basically. And I consider money and not saving money because it's a commodity.
And I bet you could share it. And we're talking about our contribution
Absolutely.
aspect, right?
I mean, the old saying is, if you don't get any free zucchinis, you must not have any friends in the summertime, because they just sometimes produce so much, and you go out there and you're waiting for it to grow, and all of a sudden there's like 10 or 20 of them on there. So it's really, I think it's great to bring neighbors and the community together, really, too, because...
Well, yeah, talk about that. What happens if, is there a way that you can, do people do, what is it, co-oping? Is that what it's called?
Co-op is more with your organic farmers, but a lot of community gardens, so if you live in a town that's kind of tight, you really don't have the room in your backyard. Some communities will, put a spot out there, and people get their plots, and but otherwise, even if you don't have a lot of space, and if you get together with your friends and neighbors and say, hey, listen, I don't have much space, but if you grow zucchini, I'll grow the tomatoes. And we can kind of, a little trade once in a while.
Yeah,
and that's
a great idea.
And it's just great to hang out with friends and see how they're doing and learn from each other, and it brings the community back. I really think it does do that.
I love that part. That's the connecting part. I knew we were going to hit them all. This is fantastic. Okay, so what if, I'm not saying that I am, But what if I were very bad at growing things in general? What would you recommend for me?